Hello and welcome back to the Icelandic Roundup. This is episode 10. We've made it to double digits. My name is Josie Anne Gaitens. I'm culture editor at Reykjavík Grapevine. I'm joined by...
My name is Valur Grettisson. I'm the editor-in-chief at Reykjavík Grapevine. And welcome to the show. We're going to have a very nice interview today about the core of Icelandic housing problem, I think.
Absolutely.
I think this is the most vital element that we can actually discuss right now, although the elections are over. And if you want everything about the elections, you have to watch the newscast tomorrow. We're not going to go that in depth, exactly, into the elections right now. But first, we have. Do you like to drive or?
I actually like it when you drive more. I like to be a passenger.
Yeah, we have a wonderful sponsor called Lava Car Rental, and I love to drive those cars. You might drive the next time.
Maybe.
I actually hate to drive. I can't what's at the environment. You're never bored when you're driving around Iceland, are you?
You're never bored. But yeah, Lava Car Rental, they don't just have cars though. You have to remember they also have campers.
That is
so
true.
If you're coming to Iceland this summer and you want to check them out, we highly recommend them. We're also sponsored by the Lava Centre.
Tech Museum in the south of Iceland.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, and it's especially relevant right now when we're having a lot of earthquakes in the Reykjanes Peninsula.
Again, you can check out our upcoming newscast about that. We'll be talking lots about that. And while we're here, hello to everybody watching on YouTube.
Yes.
This goes out to our members on YouTube. So if you want to know more about that, you can head over to our YouTube page and click sign up, because you'll want to be a member, for sure.
But on with the butter, right? We have a special guest today. His name is Guðmundur Hrafn Arngrímsson.
I'm glad you did the introduction this time, not me.
Don't worry, if you hear Guðmundur, that's his name.
Okay.
So he is the chairman. Chairman is perhaps, I'm not even sure how this is in English, but you're the one
the chair of the board of the tenant union.
The tenant union, exactly, or Samtök leigjenda á Íslandi, if you also speak Icelandic. And we want to talk a little bit about the rental market. And the rental market in Iceland has historically been, well, it's like the Wild West.
Absolutely.
I think it's very safe and not extreme to say that, actually. And we just want to tell us a little bit just about how, what are these, this union, you call it a union actually, which is interesting in itself. But also, how is just the market right now, and why are you, you have been very loud in the Icelandic discussion when it comes to politics and the housing market. Tell us a little bit about this.
Well, the tenant union is a union of tenants, people on the rental market. We have currently around 2,000 members. It's been growing very, very fast in the last few weeks. We have a Facebook page and also a Facebook group of Icelandic tenants, and also tenants that don't speak Icelandic, which is called the Tenants in Iceland, Discussion and Support. So we are basically a union that is promoting tenant rights and campaigning for a better housing market. Mm-hmm. At the moment, the Icelandic rental market is completely unregulated. Mm-hmm. And as you say, it's a Wild West situation out there. Yeah. With where the landlord can determine the housing rental prices by themselves without any limits. There is a huge shortage. So it's in fact a very, very difficult situation for everyone. Yeah. And it's causing a lot of stress.
Yeah. And the rental market, when people were renting in Iceland, let's just say 5 years ago, they were paying much, much less rent. It has been growing quite fast, as well as, of course, the housing prices in Iceland. It has been alarming how fast they've been going up, and it's adding to our inflation and everything. So, the situation for the rental people on the rental market is getting worse and worse by every year, it seems.
Yes, the data is staggering. Since 2005, for example, almost 70% of all housing that has been added to the housing stock of Iceland, which grew from 115,000 to 150, so approximately 35,000 units in 17 years. Yeah. 17% or 24,000 of these housing units went to companies or to people, finance people that owned previously an apartment.
Or using them to rent them out in masses or something like that. Right?
Yes, this is explains the explanation for this is because how much profit you can make on the rental market.
Right.
So it increases the demand from people who want to profit from the rental market to acquire a property, because what you can do, you can have the tenant to pay off all the financial expenses,
Yes.
while your owning share of the apartment is growing, and also the market value.
Yeah.
The market value has gone up by around 11 to 14% constantly in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So an apartment that you bought in 2014 is worth more than half, 100% more now than when you bought it.
Yeah,
So
right.
you have the tenants. It's a perfect combination for those who want to benefit from the rental market.
And we have ugly examples of this, actually. We have this very famous company called Gamma. And this is one of it actually went bankrupt not that far long ago. But this company bought up like a lot of properties after 2008, when our banking system completely failed us. And they became the biggest player on the market when it came to rental. And as well as like, because the housing was going so much up, it was like a huge boost also. So, but this was never regulated in any ways, was
No,
it?
was never regulated. And since you mentioned this is a kind of a shame on our culture to allow this to happen, because these apartments, the 15,000 home units, were acquired by the Public Housing Fund and the collapsed banks, and then sold off with huge discounts to investing companies with loans from the respective institutions.
Yeah, right.
And so we're practically given away.
Yeah, the government itself had the opportunity to actually use these apartments
They-
in some ways,
they could-
but they dumped it into
Yes,
the private sector.
they could have promoted a healthy rental market, socially run rental market, but they choose to give the apartments to the previous investor that caused the whole collapse here in 2008. So these were the same players. So what they did when they grew in size and could start to be like pioneers on the market, they start to go ahead with huge increases. So before that, most of the rental market was just individuals.
Yeah, right.
To raise rent was very slow and very took a lot of effort, because as you as an individual trying to raise rent drastically comparing to other landlords, you could not do that.
Yeah.
But with a company that owning 2,000 apartments, you could go ahead. Like these two companies, Heimavellir and Alma, which is now the current name of Gamma, this is what they've been doing. This is their greatest contribution to the rental markets, is to be like an icebreaker for these brutal increases, which are 104% in less than a decade, while the average rental increase on the mainland of Europe is only 15.3%. So it's 7 times the increase. This is only...
So this is not, I mean, that's the next question I was basically going for, which is like, we see the same things happening in many cities, Barcelona, Berlin, for example, many European cities that are actually everything is going up when it comes to housing prices and so on. But so you're saying that this is very different in Iceland. We're going much higher. Much higher.
All these numbers that we can see when they talk like there's a danger, there's a danger signs on the market. The numbers, for example, in Berlin, this is when the numbers are above 10%.
Right.
Here it's 104%. So
Really?
yes. So this is in America, when they saw a change in the ownership of the housing market changed by 6%. This was a red signal for them.
Yeah.
Here, it went down by 78%, the private ownership. So this is something really unethical about how we look at the rental market. It's first and foremost seen as a profit-oriented investment market, not a human right, as it's supposed to be.
And so basically what you're saying then, that this is not just having an impact on those who are using, who are tenants, who are using the rental system in that way, but this must also be having a direct impact on actual homeowners, people who want to buy property and live in the house and not rent it out and are not landlords of multiple property, but this kind of focused on private investment and investment funds is changing the way that the whole housing market is working for both property owners and renters.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not good for anyone. Just consider if you were a parent and you had young adults that want to move out. It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Even those who, like, quote unquote, benefit from the situation because their housing value is increasing. The problem is that the children, they cannot go out in the market unless you are rich enough to support them. Mm-hmm. So it's not benefiting anyone. Regulated rental market will give you predictability, and it's going to calm things down, and it's going to move the investment to something else. I mean, if you are an investor, you have extra fund that you need to invest, just go ahead and buy a tire shop or an ice cream shop. Leave the housing market alone,
but
please.
One thing, though, there are laws about rental in Iceland, and they were passed by the parliament not that long time ago. And they are, and in them, you can see, like, that you can't raise the rent without... what would you call it? Like, you have to have a factual reason for doing so and so on. But it seems that these laws, nobody's basically going by them, and there is no enforcement going on or anything.
I don't know if you're referring to the proposal that went through to the parliament about 2 years ago that was withdrawn. In fact,
that might be okay.
Yes, because it was withdrawn. There was some limitation on increase of rental prices and increased rights of tenants, but it was withdrawn not long ago, a few months ago, in fact.
Okay.
But the housing, the tenant law states in the 37th paragraph very, very clearly that the housing price, the rental price, must be fair and just to both parties. Mm-hmm. And in the same law, in the 87th, fourth paragraph, there is a mention of a committee, a municipal committee supposed to monitor and regulate the rental market. Yeah. The housing committees of Reykjavík have been cancelled some decade ago, mm-hmm. and their task was moved into the Welfare Council of Reykjavík. Since 2014, 30th of April 2014, mm-hmm. During the current majority in Reykjavík, the word tenant in the Welfare Council, supposed to monitor the rental market, the concept of tenant has been used 4 times in the 8 years of work to monitor the housing market.
And then we come down to, like, who are often living in these, who is on the rental market. These are obviously young people. These are very often immigrants, for example. And I don't know what are the groups there, but there also vulnerable groups.
There are vulnerable groups, and especially people who don't understand their rights, they don't have the information in the language. People who come here to seek their fortune, they have terrible conditions, mm-hmm. because they live in terrible housing, without windows, without any escape, with terrible it's just awful.
Yeah. So since you've had this group, this Facebook group, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the statistics and the numbers behind this, but, like, what are the stories that you're actually hearing from people about their experiences? What's the actual impact that people are having from the situation of the rental market? I
mean, just this morning we were monitoring a discussion in a Facebook group, which is very popular by the landlords. It's discussing how to benefit from your finance that you have, and they discuss a lot about this. And this morning, for example, there was a discussion about what a good way to keep your tenant on a lease is to be able to cut off his electricity. So many landlords they don't sign over the electrical bill to the tenant because they want to be able to cut off the electricity if they don't pay on time. So the criteria often is you cannot put pictures on your wall. You cannot have guests or children or smoke or party. Mm-hmm. You have to. There are you cannot access the storage or the laundry. There are so many criteria because the power balance is so extreme at this moment, and there's no regulation. So we are pushing forward for regulation, but the stories are awful, and especially regarding people who come here to work, young people from the mainland. They just have to accept what is being offered, and they pay high prices. I mean, the square meter prices of these small studios is among the highest in the world. It's Manhattan prices.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, the average square meter price in Iceland, in Reykjavík, is 3,300 krona per square meter. This average. In Stockholm center, which is by far the highest rent in Sweden, it's 1,600.
Yeah.
So it's more than 100% higher than Stockholm. There is nothing correct about the Icelandic rental market.
When it comes also Icelandic market, like Icelandic politicians, they focus a lot, as well as the nation in it as well, on owning everything, owning their houses. We have a very high percentage of homeowners in Iceland. I mean, it feels like all of the politics and all the focus is more or less on that. Always like when we see whatever like happening, some dire situation like COVID or whatever, it's always about helping homeowners and so on. Do you feel like they are basically, they like this way of things to go, and therefore like it's not desirable to be on the market as a renting? They're always trying to force people just to buy something or something like that. I mean, it seems like it's just the culture somehow.
Yeah, we grew up with this, of course, where our parents were building or buying their own flats. There has been a complete change in this in the last decade, where the home ownership went from 75% down to 61%. We are the 6th lowest home ownership in all of Europe. We were among top 5.
Yeah, right.
We were up to 80% in the end of last century. Yeah. Norway is up to 87%. Hungary, Bulgaria are over 90%. Where the part where the share of ownership is down from 75%. There are two major things that have to supplement the market. It's a regulation on the rental market, or a large share of social oriented housing. Yeah. You cannot have such a short number of private ownership and no regulation on the other sides of the housing market. There is not a society in all of Europe and also in America where we have such a low number of housing ownership and no regulation on the rental market.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing.
And you're talking about these things that you would like to see introduced in terms of regulating the housing market. What specifically are you looking for in terms of politicians to be considering to fix this problem?
Well, first of all, like Valur said, I mean, there has been a policy of trying to have people to buy, and it's still like that, at least what they say. Last year, 37% of all housing built in Reykjavík ended up with investors. A huge part ended up with companies, and a very large part ended up with young people who were helped to buy through governmental plans. Yeah. If you're over 34 years old on the rental market, you have 0.5 chances of escaping. 0.5. There is not there's any number so low regarding that limits you to increase the quality of life except being a tenant. I mean, you can escape serious illnesses. They have more chances of cure themselves. Being a tenant, 34 years and older, there's 0.5. But what we need is extensive social housing market, non-profit. Truly non-profit, because non-profit in Iceland does not mean non-profit anywhere else.
Exactly.
And it's basically illegal what we're doing. It will be illegal in all the European countries. Yeah. While this is happening, because it's going to take a decade to build, let's say, 5,000 general social rental units, not welfare units. Yeah. Because welfare units is something different, because the social housing of Reykjavík means that you have to go through the welfare system, be evaluated with your illnesses or your social status. We need general rental units, non-profit, 5,000 or 8,000. If we want to be at the same level as Helsinki, for example, we need to have 8,000 here in Reykjavík. Yeah. While this is happening, we need immediate rent control, like is practiced in many European countries. there are about 15 European countries with an extensive rent control legislation, which limits the rent increases or even put a cap on renting.
Yeah.
There has been some horror stories which the opponents of rent control always mention.
Exactly.
New York, 1974. This is the only whip they use against this rhetoric, because it went wrong in 1974 in Manhattan, New York, where they put the price in the legislation.
Yes.
This means that there are apartments still regulated in Manhattan which are rented for $200, like 200 square meters. And there are some people who still keep the contract and then rent them out themselves for $16,000. This is the only time when it went wrong. It's been practiced all across Europe.
Explain a little bit for us, basically, what are you talking about when you talk about the rental cap? What are we talking about?
I can give you a good example in Catalonia, for example. You mentioned Barcelona.
Yeah.
There was a huge campaign for rent control in 2017 and 18. Obviously, the Catalans, they're very trained in organizing themselves.
Yeah.
You know about the campaign for independence. So the tenants were very quick of organizing. They advocated for rent control. It was passed in the parliament 2 years ago. So now it's a legislation in Catalonia. It's already gone through the Supreme Court, the Spanish Supreme Court. So what happened is that they create a calculator which was built by economists, lawyers, and many actors. And they put a price on a square meter in a certain quality of house in a certain postcode. So what you can do, for example, in Catalonia, first of all, if a municipality has to declare a housing situation under pressure to apply this law, not every municipality can apply this law. Okay. So if the housing situation is under pressure, you can apply the law, which means that the code of your flat, like we have a fixed number of every flat in Reykjavík, you type in the fixed number, and the municipality is going to tell you what the rent prices are.
Okay.
And you as a landlord, if you improve the flat, you change the kitchen or whatever,
right, so
you have to go
and then make improvements.
Then you can come to this institution, the Habitat institution, and what its name is, and then you are allowed to increase the rent.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is just where
this has been. I mean, it's only 2 years, so 4 years. Sorry.
It's 2 years since it was accepted and implemented in September 2020.
And how's it going? I mean, how is this working in other places?
Yes, I was asked to provide documentation.
And the most important question is, like, is it actually helping?
It is helping.
The renters.
It's helping. There has been a record number of rental contracts signed because many young people now have the predictability to leave the parents' home to start to rent themselves. And the scare tactics from those who were opposing this did not be realized, because if the landlord still earns 10% every year, he's gonna still rent out his rental unit, even though his profit was decreased from 20%.
Yeah.
I mean, because still the bank rates are 1% today.
Yeah.
So if you can have tenfold your bank rates, you're still going to be a landlord. So these scare tactics, they have never been realized, because it's good for everyone. It's good for the investors to knowing that they are going to have satisfied renters, tenants, always, and they're going to have a huge stock of tenants.
And bustling neighborhoods.
And what helps them also, the neighborhoods, is that the tenant has enough spending money so he can help the local business.
But one of the things that strikes me as a big challenge in this is that you've identified that the people who are most affected by this problem are people who are, for instance, immigrants, or they're young people, or perhaps have disabilities. Notoriously, these are groups that are incredibly disenfranchised when it comes to either being able to vote or choosing to. And we've just had the municipal elections, and turnout dropped in those. I know that there's not necessarily a relationship in terms of the national politics, which is where a lot of this needs to go through. But how do you see it that you'd be able to affect these changes when traditional methods of affecting political change, like voting, are going to be less effective for the groups that are impacted?
It's quite simple. the tenants, we are 45,000 homes in Iceland. We are one fourth of the housing stock. We pay over 100 billion kroner every year in rent. This number is the number that costs to build every single housing in Iceland every year. For this amount, there can be built 3,500 apartments. Last year in Iceland was 2,700. So this force of tenants is so huge, and it's so it can change things so quickly. Just for example, by rent strikes, which are doing every month in the United States. We never hear about this in the media. The success.
Rent strikes.
Yes.
Okay. And what is that?
Rent strike is when tenants just stop paying rent, just like that. And it's being practiced in the United States every month, and it's immediately successful.
Okay.
It's in some cases it took several
every
weeks.
Month. What are they actually fighting for? That?
For example, I can give you a good case here from Washington D.C. several weeks ago, where an investor bought many housing complexes in Columbia Heights in D.C.
Right.
And he wanted to increase the rent from $850 to $1,490.
Oh, okay.
So it's like an average increase. The tenant said no, and they just stopped paying the rent, and the investor went bankrupt with his investment. And luckily, there was a legislation, very progressive legislation in Washington D.C., which called the Right to Buy, or the Tenants' Right to Buy Act, which means that the state supports tenants to form a cooperative and to buy their housing units to prevent displacement. So they use this legislation. So now they are the owners of these housing complexes. Okay. This was done.
But these rental strikes, what are the consequences for the renters? I mean, could they? I mean,
evacuated.
Can they be evacuated? I mean, how they still owe rent, right? I mean, they have to pay it back when the strike is over, correct? Or how does this work in practical terms?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I don't have a clear answer what is in every single case. For example, there was a rent strike in California, in Santa Ana, in November, where the landlord, the investor, which was a very similar case, negotiated with tenants. So they did not have to pay the rent back, but they negotiated to accept a moderate increase. So they won the battle, and they were not charged the rent. It took like 6 weeks. But what is the goal here is to pressure these big landlords because many of these companies, like for example here in Iceland, they are on the stock market, and they're very sensitive to everything like that.
Very good
point.
Yes,
but I'm not saying this is not something that we are used to practice. No. But I would mention one thing. The first thing that the tenant union in Barcelona or in Catalonia did was to put up a website with a history of rent strikes and their success. So they saw that they mean business.
Yeah, right.
It means that the landlord and the municipalities decided to negotiate with them right away, because they just told the history of rent strikes throughout Europe and the United States and what the success rate is. It means like the effectiveness of a rent strike is very immediate.
It's cheaper basically to solve it straight away instead of letting it pan out into whatever. Yeah,
but tenants are not asking for to rent for free. I mean, if we only look at rent from like 2010 or 12 and we just calculate the inflation index, we are paying about 40% higher rent than compared to this year 2010 and 12.
But how about, I mean, for example, the pricing has just been going up also just for houses. I mean, there are too few houses being built, as was frequently discussed in the elections. I mean, isn't this just reflecting that high prices of housing?
Of course it is. The housing prices is almost 3 times higher than the cost of building. In the statistic institution of Iceland, you can calculate how much it costs to build 100 square meter apartment. It's about 270,000 krona per square meter, which means a 100 square meter apartment is 27 million.
Yeah.
you will not find a 100 square meter apartment in Reykjavík for less than 80 million kroner.
Yeah, right.
So it's like more than 3 times. They try to reflect this price on the rental price in a higher degree than anywhere else. On the mainland, the rent price increase is about 50% of the increase on the housing market. Here, it's almost the same. So, and also, if we look at Numbeo, this public statistic institution online, which is it's like a Wikipedia for statistics.
Okay.
We were able to see how much rent in different countries as a share of the housing price, where in Iceland is about 6%, but generally it's around 4%. So we are always in any way we calculate, the rent is 50% too high here.
Yeah.
I mean, we can calculate like the
and it's unclear what we're paying for in general. I mean,
you're not paying for, you're not owning anything. You're not
exactly.
you can, for example, I've been renting for 8 years for 30 million kroner, for example.
Right.
And the people have been renting for 30 years for
and
100 million.
And then you go to the bank, and if you want to buy even, you can show that you've been paying like 260,000 for rent. But you still can't get a loan because although the payment, like for example, owning a house in Iceland, you're most often paying within 200,000 or around.
Yes,
unless you're buying a single house.
I'm a good example. I'm a father of 5 children.
Yeah,
and 4 of them have been staying with me. Every month, several times, maybe 3 or 4 times every month. I was renting with Heimavellir, which is called Heimstaden today. It's one of these brutal rental companies, and I was renting 96 square meters, 3 bedrooms.
Yeah.
I had 1 bedroom for 3 of the children. I saw an apartment in Árbær for 42.9 million. I was paying 265,000 in rent at that time for 96 square meters.
right.
I saw this apartment for 42.9 million. It had 5 bedrooms.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely perfect for us as a family.
Yeah.
So I wanted to buy that, and I went to the bank because I had money for the down payment, and the mortgage would be 143,900.
Yeah, right.
So it's almost half the rent.
Yeah.
But
Right.
still, the bank said no because I owned some child alimony. Because and then you don't have you're put on this blacklist, which is very common. That you remain on until you solve all your debt. The reason for it, I could not pay my alimony. Well, first of all, I'm not supposed to pay alimony because I take care of my children. I have a home for them. But the reason for I could not pay it was my rent. So I told the bank,
right.
I'm in a like a catch-22 here,
Sure. Yeah.
where you want me to remain in this small flat, which is twice as expensive as the house or the apartment I want to buy. Right. So there are barriers. There are barriers through this payment evaluation, your credit, and also the down payment. Being a tenant means it's practically impossible to accumulate this fund that's needed.
Yeah.
And that's the like there are some solutions for this, not solutions, but like options that the government have. You can take your pension fund and for a few years, but today I think it's like 2 or 3 million that you get out of it. It's not much to buy an apartment in 2022.
Sure. You need 15 million kroner now to just get a decent apartment as a down payment.
Right. But you were thinking about scams.
Well, yeah. So I'm full disclosure. I'm an immigrant, and I'm also on the rental market here, and I'm looking for a house. And it has been very noticeable this year as COVID has, kind of released its grip on the country. The tourism industry is bouncing back. There are more and more people pouring into Reykjavik, and we need them. But the housing situation has really, it's gone bananas. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I have noticed, and I'm wondering if you've had experience of this as well, is that as a result, there seems to be even more of an opportunity to kind of prey on the desperate people who are looking for apartments. And I almost fell for a scam the other day for an apartment. I've heard several reports of other people in the same situation. Is this something that you're witnessing? And what would be your advice to tenants who are kind of looking for property, what to look out for, both in terms of scams, but also just in terms of finding a good landlord as the situation allows at the moment?
Well, this is a very difficult situation. So to be kind of picky as a tenant is not. You cannot.
Yeah.
So your patience to be homeless is zero also. So your options are not good. This is just the reality. And we have had numerous of these instances recorded where people are being scammed because the landlord or the people who know about the dire situation on the rental market, they take advantage of this. They know that as a tenant, especially if you're with a family, but anyone who just needs to have a home.
Yes.
And the desperation is just unbearable sometimes because I've moved 4 times in 7 years. Yeah. I know this. My homes have been sold twice and I've just had to leave and to find something else. Yeah. I've been renting 2 apartments at the same time because I had to rent this one before I could stop paying the other one. As a tenant, you cannot be picky, but of course you have to watch out. Landlords, they're not bad people, but this situation brings out the worst in everyone.
The culture is changing when it comes to this. As you have said, in like past 10 years, this have been very drastic when it comes to like getting more money out of this, and like it's becoming more of like a investment choice for people, not like it used to be, like just renting out your apartment because you're perhaps just in Sweden learning something, whatever.
Exactly. This used to be the rental market in Iceland, is that you moved abroad for studying, you would rent your unit, or you had an extra apartment in your house because your children were moved out and so on. But now it's more or less a profit-oriented investment market. And what's happening, what's doing to the market is that the pressure from these investors is raising the price. In Denmark, the criteria for the rent control is to prevent the landlords to seek more apartments and thereby raising the prices. So this is like, if you want to stop the inflation, if you want to stop like unsustainable increase in housing prices, put rent control. Because then only people who are looking for a home is on the rental market. The speculators, they find something else. They invest in diamonds or Bitcoin or on ice cream shop.
Bitcoin, this is the time.
So I'm saying that like rent control calms the housing market by on its the whole market, not only the rental market.
But tell me one more thing, just in the end, like this is incredibly interesting, and I bet a lot of people that are watching this or listening to this perhaps don't know even where to look at, like where to go. Where can they find you? Like, you have a Facebook page, of course.
We have the Facebook page, which is very active. It's called Umræðuhópur leigjenda, which is a discussion group of tenants, which is in Icelandic. We have another one.
We'll write it in the descriptions if you think.
And for you non-Icelandic speaking tenants, it's Tenants in Iceland, discussion in support.
So it's in English also?
Yes, like we have a second group in English because we need to get this information out to the non-speaking Icelandic tenant community, because it's a huge community as well and need to be served and informed about their rights and the situation. And also because we are campaigning for a change, and change is coming because the wave is rising so rapidly. So I encourage all of you tenants out there to join the union and be a part of this wave, because this force of tenants is immense, and everywhere where tenants organize themselves, they've promoted changes.
Right. And tell me one more thing. Do you have like office, or is it like how does this work though? I mean,
not yet.
You're a very fairly new union.
It's established in 2013. It was a dormant union for a couple of years, from 2019 to 2021. Because it's a volunteer work. I'm still just a volunteer. But there is a promise in one of the contracts from the government that made with the unions back in 2019, that the government promised to fund the tenant union. So we are pushing for them to keep that promise. So We will definitely have an office in the end of the summer, probably some service and
will you be renting?
legal help. We are hoping that the People's Union will help us to fund the office. Actually, we have these kind of promises.
Yeah.
So
okay. So you're building it up as it go, and you can feel there's a lot of interest, and naturally so. I mean, this is affecting people in such a core kind of a way.
This is the biggest impact on people's welfare.
Yeah, right.
Because if we fix housing, we fix everything else.
Yeah, right.
So we encourage all the tenants to join the tenant union. We have a website also.
Okay.
I hope you can put it on the screen as well.
Happens,
where people can sign up. It's free. It's going to be free always. But membership is important to give us the necessary mandate to go forward, to push the government for changes. Because now it's in the people's consensus, and we need to act when we have this momentum. Mm-hmm. It's very important. It's a pivot moment for tenants, which we need to act on.
And then to the weather, first of all, it was interesting to listen to Guðmundur.
Yeah, and thanks again to Guðmundur for coming in and talking to us. And like he said, we will have all of the links in the description, so do check them out.
Exactly.
But yeah, weather. It's warm.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Finally warm.
We're sweating in here. That's like very different.
Really unusual for us. And it's going to stay warm for the week. So on Tuesday, they say temperatures will be between 10 and 18 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, expect the lower end of that, I would say.
And I always say, like, 18 degrees in Iceland is like 32 degrees in Spain.
That's like, get straight to the pool. Light drizzle in the southeast with some fog along the north and east coast during nighttime, but generally fair elsewhere and mostly overcast. Wednesday, similar temperatures again in the mid-teens, overcast but should stay mostly dry in the capital, some showers perhaps, but rain across the rest of the country, starting in the north and east, and then more broadly across the country by the late afternoon. Variable wind, 3 to 10 millimeters per second. Oh, I always get that wrong. Not strong, basically. Thursday, northeast 8 to 13 meters per second and rain in the northwest. Elsewhere, southeast 3 to 10 meters per second and widely rain showers. Temperatures mostly 8 to 15 degrees.
And the rain is good, actually. It's good for the...
We need it.
For the flowers and everything.
Farmers are happy.
Especially farmers, right. I like it. And it's not that windy either, so we're fine.
And yeah, same heading into the weekend. Light easterly winds and rain at times in the south, more persistent rain showers in the north. Temperatures the same as Wednesday and similar temperatures in Reykjavík on Saturday, low to mid-teens basically the whole week. Cooler in the north with northerly wind and showers across the country. Driest part will be in the southwest. So it's going to be not very windy, pretty mild, a bit overcast, and basically time to start thinking about maybe digging that barbecue out with an umbrella.
Well, I barbecued last weekend.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
That was very nice.
I made my own hamburgers.
Where's my invite?
Yeah, well, my kids didn't eat the hamburgers. They said it was bad, so I mean...
Oh my goodness, right.
I'm not that good in it, so... the roads are, like always, most highland roads are still closed and impassable due to thawing. Just don't go to the highland unless you get a very clear yes from everyone about that. After the hard winter, there is, of course, issue with road surfaces being uneven. Oh, we're talking about the plot holes.
Potholes.
Sorry, potholes. Yeah, there are a lot of potholes, by the way.
Oh my goodness. I'm so proud of potholes.
They are, I love how you reworded that. They're uneven.
I was really trying to get you to not mention them.
They are working to repair these. Check out road.is for up-to-date information on where roadworks are taking place. In addition, there are major road improvement measures taking place in the south between Selfoss and Hveragerði. It's fine, just drive slower, not at 100, and you'll survive this. And these will be ongoing all summer. They're not due to be completed until 2023, so expect a lot of slow-moving traffic on Route 1 as the road gets busier with visitors. And this is a very good point, actually, because the more the traffic is, and also just this area is bustling and really fun these days.
Yep.
I love it.
What's going on?
There's a wonderful food halls there and a food court, or however you would say it in English.
Yeah, in Selfoss, a new one. So
as well as Hveragerði, so it's wonderful. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of people, slow traffic, but so is life.
So it goes. Well, thank you for listening, as ever. And in talking of roadworks and works in general, sorry if you heard any construction noise during this. They're actually building a food court in front of our office, which we're very excited about. But in the meantime, it's a little bit loud. Hopefully the sound wasn't too bad. And thank you again to Guðmundur for joining us. And a little request, as always, please go and rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to it. It really makes a huge difference to us. We've made it to episode 10. We want to keep making this. So please support us this way if you like the podcast.
Yes. So thanks for watching if you're watching, and thank you for listening if you're listening. And until next Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, let's go for that.
Let's go to that. I have no idea.
Bye for now.